When I meet with clients, they often ask me, how long will the process take if I hire you? And I can't predict exactly how long it will take, but I can tell you that there is a certain chronology to a personal injury lawsuit. Typically, it begins with an investigation into what happened, whether we interview witnesses, collect records of the injuries to try to analyze the nature and extent of somebody's injuries. And then we'll initiate communication with the insurance company or the corporation, whoever caused the harm. We would initiate contact to try to find out what types of insurance coverage they have. Once we do that, we would file a lawsuit. And we could file a lawsuit within 1 week of meeting with a client. Sometimes it might take a little bit more time as we try to conduct a more thorough investigation. But we do try to file the lawsuit as quickly as possible in order to get the process going. And once you file a lawsuit, the other side, the defendant, has roughly 30 days to file an answer to the complaint. And that is when both sides are now involved in the case. After the defendants answer the complaint, we would initiate written discovery. And that's a series of questions that we send to the other side in a written form that the other side has to answer. And they would do the same to our client. They would ask them a series of written questions and ask them to respond to those questions, as well as provide documentation related to the accident, whether it's photographs, medical records, documents related to loss of earnings. Those types of that type of information has to be exchanged. Now, once you're done with the written discovery, typically then we get into taking depositions. Sometimes depositions could be taken earlier in the case, but frequently we want written discovery before we take depositions. The deposition is a process under which we can ask questions of witnesses and representatives from the defendant, and the defense attorney could also ask questions of my client. And those take place at different times. And so that's a question and answer period where you find out what the other side has to say about the case. After depositions, oftentimes in, for instance, Los Angeles County, cases are referred to mediation, and that's a process where all the sides sit down with an independent third party, typically a lawyer or a judge, and that individual tries to bridge the gap and tries to settle the case. Now, not all cases settle, but that's an opportunity to try to resolve the case without going to trial. And all cases in Los Angeles County have to go through that process. If mediation is unsuccessful, typically any last discovery efforts, depositions would be completed, and then we would get into typically expert discovery, where any medical experts or experts on liability, for instance, an expert on slip and falls or an expert on accident reconstruction, those depositions and discovery would be completed. And at that point in time, you're typically within 30 days of trial. And if the case still doesn't resolve, the next step is trial. And that's where we would present the case in front of a jury of 12 people from the community and let the jury decide. The process usually takes at least a year. Sometimes it takes longer. From the date that you file the complaint. It depends on the court's calendar and also the complexity of the case.